Ayaw. Ulit nga, i-off mo tapos i-on mo. One viewer. Sino yun? Ay, ikaw yan. Paano mo na-click yan? Ha? Five viewers. Good afternoon to everyone. Are we in? So this is our first ever teleconferencing for develop learning materials for e-learning. So the purpose of this teleconferencing is to discuss about contextual learning matrix, which is your next output for this training. So let me show you the contextual learning matrix. This is the contextual learning matrix. So we shall use this tool in identifying the contents for your e-learning materials as well as for other materials that you may be developing. For your qualification title, you just have to copy it from the training regulation. So everything that we shall discuss today will be based on the training regulation. Please put off your microphones so that I cannot hear it from here. Okay, so from the training regulation, you just have to put the qualification title, the unit of competency, and your team as the TPDC for your institution. So for this training, we said you are going to develop only one competency for the training duration, December 5 to January 20. So the whole of your group will make only one contextual learning matrix like this. So you have to choose one of your competency. So you will see that there are a lot of columns in this contextual learning matrix. We have the elements because the contextual learning matrix is based on the training regulation. It's not based on the CBC. Okay, so you have the elements, the performance criteria, and then the technology contents. So the technology contents shall be the basis for all of the science, math, English, environmental issues, which will be the contents of your competency for learning. And then we have the learning activities. So the learning activities will be the activities of the learners to learn the technology. And then if we go on to the other columns, we have these columns. The basic and common competencies shall be used, these columns shall be used to account which competencies of your core competency are related to the basic and common competencies. So all LOs are with columns, and you are to tick which contents is related to each of the learning outcomes. Also, further in the form, we have these columns. We have the learning materials. So this is a very important column for us because this is where we will account which contents are for e-learning, or which contents would we like to develop as an e-learning material. Also, we have supplies and materials for the activity which is written in the learning activities column. Also, for the learning activity, how many hours will be devoted for each of the activities specified in that column. We also have estimated cost. But for this training, we will be concentrating on the learning, the contents, the learning activities, and the learning materials column. Okay, now let's go to the analysis of your competency. Let me first stop this screen, and we will have another screen. So let's look at the analysis for the competency. Let's have an example. Okay, this is our sample table. We are analyzing a training regulation which is electrical. So you can see only 3 columns first. So we will these columns are very important because we are trying to have the contents for technology. So before we can identify the math, science, and communication contents, we have to identify the technology contents. Okay, from this table, you can see here instructions. So let us have this zoom in, zoom it right here. So in the elements column, it says you have to copy elements from the TR of the qualification. So as an example, we have install electrical protective devices. This is the second LO or element of electrical installation and electrical EIM, electrical installation and maintenance. So for the performance criteria, we are using performance criteria which we shall copy from the TR. So not from the CBC, but from the training regulation. And then, copy one criteria at a time. So, one criteria at a time. So, example, for this sample element, we have the second LO. We did not choose the first LO because that's for safety and it's universal. So let us have the uh, second LO or second performance criteria. This one, correct procedures for installation of electrical protective devices are performed in line with job requirements and Philippine Electrical Code, PEC. So we have to conform with the laws. So there are three, if you will notice, you have here the verb, which is are performed in line with the job requirements. So the verb is perform, and we have to look at this part of the performance criteria because it is very important. So let us see how we will analyze this criteria so that we will uh, have the contents or we will have the correct contents for this performance criteria. Performance criteria pa lang tayo isang performance criteria pa lang ang pinag-uusapan natin. So, we have to analyze the performance criteria. But how? How shall the performance criteria indicate the contents of your technology, the technology contents of your competency? So, saan ba galing yung performance criteria muna? Let us see where this performance criteria came from. Let me stop this and let us see the TR. So look at this training regulation. Oh, no. The training regulations is this one. Okay, so this is the competency standards for EIM. So if you look at this TR, we have the unit of competency, install electrical protective devices for distribution, power, lighting, auxiliary lighting protection, and grounding system. And on the table, we have a description and then we have a table. We have element and performance criteria. So this one is very important for the analysis. So we are choosing this LO or the LO, the element. So we are choosing install electrical protective devices, and we are choosing this performance criteria and we are analyzing it. So let's get back to our analysis, our table. So let's see the CLM. Okay. So paano na tayo magkakaroon ng contents from that? Our table says you have to focus on the verb and state the tasks. So the first thing that you should state is, or you should look for are the tasks of the criteria. So how? The verb is perform installation of electrical protective devices. So that the task is install electrical protective devices. Where did we get that? So we get back to the performance criteria. The verb there is perform, but what is to be performed? It's the installation of electrical protective devices. So the technology will be the following, or the technology content shall be the following. Install electrical protective devices. But what kind of devices? Since the word electrical protective devices are in bold letters in the performance criteria from the training regulation, uh, we know that these are important words of the performance criteria. Why did I say these are important words in the performance criteria? Let's get back to the TR, or the training regulation. Stop this and go back to our training regulation. Okay. So if you look at the training regulation, these words which are in bold letters are purposely in bold letters because they are further explained in the next page of the TR, which is the range of variables. So remember the word a while ago, electrical protection system component, or electrical protection system component. They are uh, they are in bold letters in the performance criteria because they mean the following variables. So if we say electrical protection system component, we have safety switch, earth leakage circuit breaker, conventional atmospheric lighting protection, and grounding system. These are the variables for this important words here, or for this content here. So let's get back to our analysis. Stop this and go to our table again. So we have this. Fine. Stop this and go to that analysis. This one. So looking back and looking at the range of variables, the electrical protective devices are safety switch. These are just copied from the range of variables of our training regulations. So there are 4. Okay, so there are 4 safeties. These are the 4 variables. And to complete our contents, we have rewritten the technology contents as the following: installation of safety switch, installation of earth leakage, which is the second variable, installation of conventional atmospheric lighting protection, and installation of grounding system. So dapat nandun sa contents ninyo lahat itong 4. Hindi installation lang. Okay? And then we further analyze. So based on the tasks, itong 4 na to, what about the knowledge contents needed? Meaning, kung ito yung mga gagawin mo, ano pa yung dapat na ituro mo? O ito yung dapat gagawin nung tinuturuan mo, what else should you teach aside from the procedures of installation? So, of course, you need the types and functions of electrical protective devices such as these four. Also, based on the required knowledge on the TR, the next column after the performance criteria a while ago, what are the contents? These are the required knowledge based on the TR. We have the PEC, requirements regarding installation of electrical protection devices. So you will not teach the whole book of the PEC, but you will you need to look at the section where we can see the laws for these contents. And then this is also written in the required knowledge column of the TR, uses of different protective devices. So, uses of panel board, circuit breaker, safety switch, and so on. These protective devices should be a part of your contents. These are knowledge contents to attain the tasks. Okay, so that's for just one performance criteria. Now, after the analysis, let us see how it looks like when we have it on the table. Let's see how the table looks like when you have it. So since we have identified the learning contents, we have to summarize it on the CLM. So looking back, let us share with you a cleaner version of the CLM, which is this one. Okay. So from the analysis, the elements copied from the TR, the performance criteria, which is only one example, is this one, copied from the TR. Now the technology contents becomes this. So the four tasks, the procedures on the installation of the four variables, the types and functions of electrical protective devices, and the code, the Philippine Electrical Code required for the installation of the four, and then the uses of different protective devices as specified in the TR. Okay? Now, later we will be sequencing all of these contents. So you can see that there's a lot of contents for only one performance criteria because we analyzed one of the core performance criteria of the competency. We did not start with the first element, but we started with the second element, which is one of the core. So usually, yung mga nauunang performance criteria are preparatory. So yung mga nasa gitna, yun yung mga nasa core. They contain the most of the contents because they are the main tasks of the competency. So now, these contents later shall be used when you will sequence your contents so that you can develop the e-learning materials. Remember, this is just a sample analysis for only one performance criteria. So in the TR, there are from 3 to 5 elements or more elements, but the minimum is 3 elements. So you will be able to have more than this number of contents as you analyze your criteria. So we are not just copying, but we are analyzing the performance criteria. Okay, in summary, let us review. So first, you have to analyze the criteria based on the verb, that is to identify the task. After identifying the tasks, you have to identify the variables for the tasks. Para pag nagluluto, for example, for cooking pork, you are not just cooking one menu, but you have to look at all of the variables in the TR. Okay, so that all of those variables in the TR are included in your contents. Huwag yung nasa assessment lang. Ulit, huwag yung nasa assessment lang ang contents ng inyong ng inyong competency or ng inyong learning activities. Nakasulat po lahat yung variables na yon sa training regulations. So all variables of the tasks specified in the TR are also described in the range of variables. Okay? So that is for the learning content for technology. Now, let's get back to the contextual learning matrix. So we know that the contextual learning matrix is this wide. Okay, now, after the technology is identified, we will now look at the other contents. So the science, the math, the communication, environmental concerns, columns. So based on the identified contents for technology, you will now identify the science, math, and communication contents. So in some of the TRs, environmental issues are very specific, especially for agriculture and other related courses. But for science, math, and English, you need your contextual learning trainers. That's why they are required members of your training package development committee. So now, how will the science teacher identify the science contents? The technology trainer should be with the team. So you should be working with the team when you are identifying the science, math, and English contents. You cannot work individually because the technology trainer have to explain to you what are involved in the tasks. In our example, it's installation of electrical it's installation of electrical safety switch or ECLB. So the trainer should be able to explain to you what contents are what science contents maybe in the technology contents, but the definite content shall be identified by the science trainer. Okay? Dapat nag-uusap yung uh, committee to identify the science content. Not all contents or not all performance criteria have science and math. Okay? They do not have science, and not all contents have science and math counterparts, especially when we are preferring the forms, that is of course for the English or communication. But for electrical, so for EIM, which is our example, there must be a science content there kasi electrical. But we should be very specific with the content. So you cannot just say Ohm's law. Why? Because Ohm's law is a very big content. So what part or what shall you do with the Ohm's law? For example, if you put there Ohm's law, or how you should say how to use Ohm's law in the computation of voltage. So that's more specific than just putting Ohm's law there. Okay, so the trainer for the technology should identify that with the science and math, because science and math science and math contents are related with each other. So usually the application of science of math and science is the technology. So they are very closely related, but we should always be very specific of the contents. Please do not put Ohm's law, metallurgy. Metallurgy is very, very large. So, masyadong malawak yon. Kung ilalagay mo dyan, paano natin yun igagawan ng learning activity kung ganun kalaki. Okay? So, for environmental issues and other concerns, of course, the team will work on that. So, the team should work on that. So, for the other columns, say the learning activities. Paano natin lalagyan yung learning activities? Shall we put learning activities per row? Shall we put learning activities for the whole competency only? No, we should put learning activities per task. Okay? So, learning activities, for example, in our example, install grounding system. So, if you say install grounding system, what are the learning activities that we should specify for that? So, shall we have the actual installation in the simulated place, or shall we have it only in our workshop, or shall we have it in the actual area? So it should be stated here so that we can contextualize our contents. Contextualizing means this contents should be related to actual life activities, such as at work, or when we are working with this or interacting with this contents or with this task in the environment. So, example ng learning activity is practicing how to install grounding in uh, in a simulated area, or demonstration of how to install grounding in our mock-ups is one of the learning activities. But if we would like it to be uh, more of a contextual one, we can have it in the actual construction area, which is sometimes very difficult, of course. So now, this is very important. This is a very important column, the learning activities. This one, because this is where some of our contents will come from. Now let's go to this basic and common contents. We are just putting here one if this content for the row is related to this LO. So let us zoom this one first so that we can see it further. So this is communicate information about workplace processes. So if this is related, for example, with install grounding system, we have it one. If not, we can leave it blank. Okay, later, the number of ticks will accumulate and you will have the total frequency. Another very important part here is the learning materials column. Of course, do not, we may not make our contents all e-learning or in a e-learning format. If, for example, in your area, internet is very slow, we cannot make online learning materials, but we can have e-learning materials uh, which are installed in your standalone computers or in your network, which is only in your institution without the internet. But you have to choose which content can be put in e-learning format. So we still would like to have our materials blended, but if possible, we shall choose contents which may be in the e-format so that we can cope with the technology and the kind of learners that we have. Okay, so let me repeat. We have the learning materials column, which is very important. We have the learning activities column and the other columns, the technology, science, math, English, and environmental issues column. So, your assignment as a team. So, assignment na po. Your assignment as a team shall be the contextual learning matrix for one competency. Okay, for one competency. So the output for contextual learning matrix will be one for the whole team. So if you are 7, then there will be one output for the 7 of you. Okay? So after completing the contextual learning matrix, you shall submit it online. So we are having the workshop activity for that. We shall share your output with teams who have the same or related competency with your competency. So kung automotive, isi-share sa ibang automotive teacher para o ibang automotive team para makapag-compare kayo ng activity. And then po, for those who have no comparison, we shall be looking at your output, or we shall be having other related qualifications for you also to rate. After the contextual learning matrix is submitted and critic, you are required to validate the contextual learning matrix with your industry partner and the team. So, ibabalik yan sa committee, and we shall be giving you validation tools for the contextual learning matrix so that we can ensure that this matrix is being validated by the industry. So the sample questions will be, ito pa ba yung ginagawa sa industry? Nag-i-install pa ba ng grounding system o pasay na yon? Yun bang activity to na ginagawa namin sa loob ng workshop ay gagawin o ganito pa rin ba ang ginagawa sa industry? So, are there learning activities related to what the performance criteria would like to attain? So, yun. So, we have to have it validated by the team through the industry partner also. After that, malapit na tayong gumawa ng ating course outline, and then we will be putting on the reading materials and the videos and the learning materials for the development of your e-learning materials. Hindi pa namin ino-open yon kasi kailangan nating makita muna yung anong contents ang ilalagay nyo sa inyong e-learning materials. But for those who already have their prototypes in their learning materials pre-formatted, titignan natin kung paano sila mag-conform dun sa standards or dun sa contents na na-identify with the TPDC. So yung development committee has a very, very important role in the development process. So pag wala kasi yung development committee, there will be no team to validate all of these materials, and we would like to have a committee to ensure that these materials will be conforming with the standard.